This is Gemara and Yoma Daf Nun Zayin. All the learning for this month, the month of Sivan. As we wind down the month of Sivan, the final week has been generously sponsored as a special Schos Shidduch for Yishal Chaim and Devaira. Mir Hashem, the learning of the entire Chabura should be a tremendous Schos. They should find the Siva Kagoin Bekaroi. Of course, the rest of Achel Men Vavik Chaim Ben Sarah Shlomo Sivan Nizil Sar Baskanendli the Basim was Chaisei Yisrael Memendel as a person Shalei Shamas Naviv Shavik Shechan Shol Mendil Ninel Chan Rizal Melchai Basin Librach was the Mr. Dinenu Basin Min Sivan Vega Diver. As well as Bas Ita. If anyone would like to reach out regarding the sponsorship for Tammuz, it is still available. Please be in touch. We are picking up on the bottom of Nun Vav Amid Beis Visa Mimenu Ala Pareches Keneged Aron Mibachotz. We just finished not only the Keteris Lefnai Lefnim, the sprinkling of the Plar, the sprinkling of the Seir, and now we're going to start the sprinkling on the Pareches outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. 8 lines on the bottom of the bottom of Beis says the Gemara, he sprinkles the blood towards the Pareches Keneged Aron Mibachotz. Tanu Rabbana, we learned in a Bryce of Chen Yasel Oil Mayed, and so too we shall do in the oil mayin. Matam Olaymar, what is the Torah teaching us? Kishem shemazi lefnai v'lefnim, kach mazeh be'echol. The same way that you sprinkle lefnai v'lefnim, achas lamayla v'sheva lamata, 1 above and 7 below, so too you sprinkle in be'echol ma lefnai v'lefnim, achas lamayla v'sheva lamata midam ha'par. Just like inside you sprinkle the bull's blood, 1 above, 7 below, kach mazeh be'echol, so too by the echol you do the same sprinkling. Ukishem shelefnai v'lefnim, the same exact thing you do by the Heichal on the Pareiches. So far we learned now 4 sprinklings. We have the 2 inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We have the Par Achas L'Mayla V'Shev L'Mata. We have the Seir as well. And now we just learned that we're equating those 2 dinim to as well, doing the same type of sprinkling on the Pareiches. Says the Gemara, the end of that pasuk says, that he dwells amongst you, amongst the Yidin, b'soich tumasam, amongst when they are tamei. So the Gemara takes a bit of a segue for a moment into Tagadata, and the Gemara teaches us, afilu b'shashein tameim shchina yimayim. Even when Klal Yisrael is tamei, Hashem is with us. Amar le'u tzeduki the Rav Chanina. There was a tzeduki that said to Rav Chanina as we turn over to Nun Zayin Amar Aleph Hashta. Now, Bari Tomasanatun. Now that you're for sure Tameh. So certainly Hashem has left you ask the Saduki. Because it says that the Toma is on the hem of the clothing Amarle. So he responded, absolutely not. Come and see that it says and we learn out from there that even when we're unfortunately Tameh, we're in Galus, the Shechina is still with us. Says the Gemara, we now have a bit of a fundamental shayla on all the limudim of yesterday. Ask the Gemara in Zayin Amar Aleph 5 lines down. There's a ruling kachim. You're not allowed to learn one hekish from another hekish. So the Gemara is asking that the way that we learned Seir and Par in the Kodesh HaKadoshim itself was a Hekish. So to go and now pull out of there, to learn that in the Pareiches is the same din, is a form of learning Hekish me Hekish, which says the Gemara is not allowed by Kachim. Answers the Gemara, Hai Heimenu V'Davar Acher. Explains the Gemara that when it comes to sprinkling, when it comes to Zrika in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's not a Hakish, but rather it's Heimenu. It's learned from the pasuk V'Davar Acher, and it's a Hakish. Who? V'lo yahave hakish, and therefore it doesn't have the same rules as a regular hakish. When you have a regular hakish, you're not allowed to learn hakish from a hakish. But says the Gemara, it's not a regular hakish. By the Kodesh HaKadoshim there are psukim as well, and therefore explains the Gemara, you could learn out to the dinim by the sprinkling on the paroiches. But I asked the Gemara, nichleman damar lave hakish. That's a debate. It's not so simple. According to the Mandamar that holds that if there's a pasuk and then a hakish and not a hakish, the Mandamar is a hakish, Michael Meimar. Answers the Gemara Taurus number 1. The second hakish, when we go and we learn from Kodesh HaKadoshim out to Pareiches, is not a full hakish. It's not teaching us all the halacha. It's rather just teaching us the makaim, the place that you're going to do these sprinkling of the hazah, and therefore says the Gemara, since it's not teaching us the same din, it does not fall under the rules of hekish from hekish, which are not allowed by kachim, which is a bit of a slightly different hekish. Taras number 1. Taras number 2 says the Gemara, Yibay chutz mi pifnim bechada. Bechada zimna gamar. Says the Gemara, that which we learn from outside, we learn from inside. It's all one. It's not a hekish from hekish, but rather it's all one long hekish. This is reminiscent almost when Gemara is asked, Gezeira le Gezeira? And the Gemara retorts, no, kulu achad Gezeirahi. So says the Gemara here also, it's not really 2 stages, it's not 2 different hekishais, but rather it's all one large hekish. Tana says the Gemara, we learned in a brayse, we learned yesterday you don't actually sprinkle on the Aron HaKodesh, you do towards that direction. But says the Gemara, that was that shita. But Amar Rav Elazar Rav Yaisi explains Rav Elazar Rav Yaisi, I saw the curtain in Rome. I saw, know what I see? And there was actually blood on the curtain. Shalbar Shal Yoma Kippurim. So says the Gemara, you just told me you don't have to actually sprinkle it on the kapayres, on the preches, excuse me, I might have said kapayres before, pardon. You don't have to actually sprinkle it on the curtain. But says Rav Elazar, I saw the blood. I saw the curtain and there was blood on it. So how are you going to tell me that you didn't actually sprinkle on it? Says the Gemara, how do you know which blood you saw, Rav Elazar? Maybe that which you saw was different bloods. Were different bloods that was on the curtain, but not actually the blood of the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur. Answers the Gemara, the Chazid Avida Kisidra, no, he saw us like a whip. Remember, we did a Kimin that it was like a whip and made the dots down. That was the form that he saw, and that is the reason why he was convinced that it was indeed on to the Paroiches. Says the Gemara, once we're on the topic, we learned they didn't actually hit the Paroiches. They didn't have to hit the Paroiches. If they did, it's okay. Amar Rav Elazar Rav Yaisi disagrees. How do you know? Maybe it was the blood of Yom Kippur that they saw that it was not in the proper order. So before we continue, let's just recap very quickly what we just saw. We just saw was the discussion where you sprinkle the blood outside. Keneged the Kodesh HaKodashim. We said on the Paroiches. Is it actually on the Paroiches or is it just in the direction? Said the Gemara, it's not actually on the Paroiches. The Gemara is bothered. It says Rav Elazar Rav Yaisi, I saw the curtain and it was there. How do you know which blood it was? So according to the first lashon, it's because they saw the drops down. According to the second lashon, it's the opposite thing that we're learning at the param the parashah of Yom Kippurim of Avodah Zarah, and specifically because the blood was not on the way down. That's when we know it was that blood. Says the Gemara, Nesarvu loy damim b'hadadi. If the 2 bloods, we know we have the blood of the seir, the blood of the par, get mixed together. Now, let's remember, there were 4 sprinklings and then another stage. They sprinkled inside the par, inside the seir, outside the par, outside the seir. Then they took the 2 bloods, they mixed it together. So the Gemara here says, Nesarvu damim b'hadadi does not mean at the end when they're supposed to mix it. It means there was a premature mixing earlier on in the day. Rashi learns very interesting that the mixing was all the way back before any sprinkling, even before they went into the Kodesh HaKodashim, which if anyone remembers means something else happened out of order. That means the seir was shachted out of order. Because the way that we do it is we sprinkle the par inside, then we come outside and shacht the seir. If they went and they mixed the blood, it must be they already shachted the seir. That means that was out of order. Ask all the Rishayim and Rashi, it can't be because everything has to be in order on Yom Kippur. But now, let's whichever way you want to learn exactly when the blood mixed. There was a mixage of the blood at the wrong time. Ask the Gemara, what is the story? Amar Rava says, Rava Nasan Achas Lamayla V'Shav Lamata V'Ayla L'kan L'kan. Says Rava, no big deal. Do Achas Lamayla, do Shav Lamata, and everything's good and dandy. You'll work for the par, you'll work for the seer, everything's fine. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Amruk, Yoma, you foolish Babylonians. You live in a dark land. You say dark things, what you're saying is ridiculous. How can you tell me do one time, and that's going to include this year, include the par? Says Mar, it's impossible. Should it come out that the Lamaila, the top of the seer, is before the Lamat of the par, and that can't be. The par has to be before the seer. So it has to be that the par gets then the seer goes. If you're going to tell me they do it all together, obviously it's not going to work. Attempt number 2. So he says the way that you do it is going to be first do it once to the par, then do it once to the seer. It's mixed together. Everything is good and dandy. It says the Gemara Shaila number 2. Again, question number 1 was when the blood's mixed early in the proceedings. Question number 2 says the Gemara Nisar v'lo damim damim. The two bloods became mixed together. Bimatonois achroinois. The latter applications. What does that mean? They did the achas l'mayla of the par before they did the shevel l'mayta, the 7 below. The bloods got mixed. How this happens? Question on a story. Kasha l'maysa says the Gemara Savar Apapa. He lines to the bottom. Kamei derav l'meiber nosan shevel l'mayta l'shem par l'shem seir. They should do Shev Lamata for the par and the seer, and then do Achzamayla L'Shem Seir. But Amalei Rava again is bothered because again it's out of order. You're completely foolish. Now it comes out that the seer itself is out of order. We know first has to be on top and then below. The way that you're saying is you're first doing below and then on top. Says the Gemara as we move over to Nzayin Beis Elamarava. Nubshat, what you're supposed to do when the bloods get mixed after you already sprinkled the dam of the para lamaila. First do the par and then do it again for the seer, and that is how you'll suffice the sprinkling both for the par and the seer. Case number 3 of mixing. The two bloods got mixed together. You don't know which is par, we don't know which is seer. They weren't mixed in one, but rather the 2 cups got mixed together. You're not sure which is which. What are you supposed to do now? Says the Gemara. Noisin v'chayzer v'noisin v'chayzer v'noisin shaloi shape'amim. You got to do it 3 times. Very simply, we know it has to be par and then seer. So let's go. Do number 1. If it's par, great. Then the next one's seer and the third one's nothing. So do the first one. Let's say you were seer, great. Then the next one's going to be par, and then you'll have the seer afterwards. If it'll always conclude and have the par and then the seir again. Says the Gemara, mixas dam nizar like case number 4. What happens if part of the 2 bloods became mixed together? Or mixas dam nizar like part are mixed and part are not mixed. What do you do now? Says the Gemara, pshita ki ya'iv moidien ya'iv mevadayin ya'iv. Excuse me. When you do the nisina of the blood, when you do the hazayo, you do it of the one that's vaday, the right blood. So what's the question? Question is on the rest of it that is mixed. What do you do now? Again, what was this case? This case was partially mixed and partially not mixed. So when they are not mixed, that's what you're going to use for the Shev and everything's going to be fine. But says the Gemara, what about the rest of the blood? Do we call it Shirayim, leftovers, or is it considered like a carbon that you have left over? It's tachlit, push away, and therefore you have to spill it into the Amma, to the canal underneath the Mizbeach. So what do we do with this blood that is partially mixed and partially not? Even according to Man Amar that holds that one cup could become a shirayim for his friend. That if you wanted to bring it on the base of it, you could have a high. And therefore he argues and he says it's not called shirayim, rather it's called dechuyin, and therefore you pour it into the amma, you pour it into the canal that ran underneath the mizbeach. But I disagree. You, Rabba, just said that it's dolchui, that extra blood, and therefore you have to pour it into the canal. Amma says Rav Huna, no way. That when you have one cup and you have another cup, one can make the other one dolchi. Honey, immediately did the biyadayim. That's you have two cups. You only did one. You pushed the other one biyadayim. You didn't do it on purpose. Loi. Rav Huna disagrees. The Tanya, as we learned in our Bryce, and now we're going to go back and quote this root machlekes that we just alluded to, of one pushing away its friend. The Tanya says, the Gemara Lamalu Oimer, what does it say? Above, that's damoy yishboich. Let's hone in damoy, singular, it's blood. Ulematu Oimer, that's called damoy yishboich. You got to pour away all the blood. So what's going on over here? Do you pour away its blood or do you pour away all the blood? What exactly is the appropriate din? Minayin lachata shkibel dama ba'arba koises v'nasa mizachas shekulan ishvachim liyisoid. Says the Gemara, if you catch the carbon chatas, a regular chatas, nothing to do with Yom Kippur. You catch it in 4 different cups. What is the halacha? The halacha is, says the Bryce, nasa mizachas umazeh achas shekulan ishvachim liyisoid. Everything goes to the Yesoid. Talmud Loimer, that's what I would have thought. Talmud Loimer, it's called Dama Yishvach. Everything gets spilled out. You would think if you use the blood on the 4 corners from even one of the cups, that would be the halacha. Talmud Loimer, that's Dama Yishvach. It's blood. They get spilled out. It gets spilled to the side, and everything else gets spilled out to the Am. Again, you have a chatos. You have to put the chatos in 2 places. You have to put it on the 4 corners. You have to put it in the yisoid. So it says, Rav Shimon, what is halach if you catch the chatos in 4 different cups and you put 4 matanas? You put on the 4 corners on the 4 horns. But you did it all from 1 cup. You're supposed to do it from all 4 cups. You did it only from 1 cup. What's halach? It all goes into the Yisai. Then no, everything it's called Dama Yishbach, and therefore we see from the fact that it says it's blood, Dama. What do we learn out from there? That some of the blood does not all go onto the base of the Mizbeach, but rather everything else as well. No, that's for a different halacha. That's going to exclude if there's blood left on the neck of the animal. That blood you don't have to worry about. So again, just to get this last piece clear, the Brisa is basically differentiating between a case that when you have a regular carbon chatas and you catch all the blood in 4 different cups, or whether you catch it in 1 cup. On one hand, the pasuk says that's called dama. On the other hand, it says a kol adam. We have 2 different psukim. One pasuk teaches me all. One pasuk teaches me it's. How do we learn out 2 psukim? So the Bryce is teaching me that if I catch it in 4 different cups and I use all those bloods, what's halacha? Then all the blood is the din of shirayim, leftovers, and therefore what am I going to do with it? I'm going to pour it into the yisoid. Of course, this means that on the base of the mizbeach there are 2 holes, and I take the extra blood and I pour it into the hole. But says the Gemara, what do we do with the other pasuk? The fact that it says ves damoyish teaches me that, let's say I have all from 1 cup. I do the 4 matanas, the 4 applications on the 4 horns from 1 cup of blood. So you would think still everything is called shirayim. No, that teaches me that only that goes to the aside, that goes onto the base, but everything else is not called shirayim. It's called dichuyim. It's pushed away, and that goes onto the amma, the canal that ran underneath the mizbeach. That's the Tanakama. Rav Shimon, he learned slightly differently, and he learned the opposite way around. He learned that if you have a chatos, that all the blood was caught in 4 different cups, and those 4 cups you use from only one of them, then he learned that they all actually are poured onto the aside, because we learned it called Dama Yishpaich, all the blood, and therefore it learns out that even when you only use 1 cup, all 4 cups are called Shirayim, the exact opposite of the Tanakama. So the Gemara said, but according to Lazar of Shimon, what does he do with the other pasuk? Damai. And on that, Rav Ashi answer that comes to exclude something else. Damai, it's blood, that's the blood that you caught, but if you have some blood that's left on the neck of the animal, that blood does not get poured onto the side, the base of the Mizbeach, rather that blood you pour into the Amma that would run underneath the Mizbeach, and we'll pick it up for the Tudat Mir Tashem tomorrow.